Fearful avoidants are, hands down, some of the most confusing people to date. It can feel like trying to solve a puzzle where the rules keep changing. So if you have a fearful avoidant in your life and you're confused, you're not alone. And it happens because on a subconscious level, they're constantly testing whether it's safe to let people in. Hi, I'm Jess. I've helped over 5,000 people find love, and I run a one-to-one coaching program that takes you from anxious to secure, so you can trust your instincts and build the relationship you've always wanted. If you're ready for that transformation, sign up via the link in the description box. So firstly, why do fearful avoidants test people? It really comes down to the fact that we test things that don't feel safe. If you came across a rope bridge over a 500-foot drop in the middle of the jungle, you probably wouldn't just run across it full speed ahead. You'd probably put your foot down and press gently to see if it could take your weight. You'd probably pull on the ropes and listen for creaks. That's exactly what fearful avoidants do in relationships. Their tests are those little tugs to see if the connection is safe and sturdy, that it won't collapse if they lean in. And the reason they don't ask directly for whatever they are trying to get from these tests, maybe it's reassurance, maybe it's clarity, it's because asking directly feels too vulnerable. If they put their need out there in a direct way and it isn't met, they can see it as confirmation of their deepest fears, which are things like they'll be rejected or abandoned, or they aren't worth the effort. So the three main ways fearful avoidants will test people in relationships are firstly push-pull dynamics, secondly conflict, and thirdly floodlighting. So most fearful avoidants don't even realize that they're doing this. It isn't about manipulation. These tests are essentially protective strategies. So let's dive in. Number one, push-pull dynamics. With fearful avoidance, it can feel like 1 minute you're their safe place and the next you can feel like you're an outsider. This hot and cold behavior is one of the most common fearful avoidant dynamics. So firstly, it's a defense mechanism. They use it to soothe their own fears. And they fear both intimacy and losing their freedom. They're terrified of being abandoned, but also engulfed. So you can probably see how it can be quite uncomfortable to be a fearful avoidant and confusing to date one. So yes, they push-pull partly because of these conflicting fears, but they also sometimes do it as a test to see if someone will stick around through the ups and downs. And what they're really looking for here, at least if they do like you, is for you to stay. But push-pull dynamics can be super painful to be on the other side of. So I definitely wouldn't suggest you just don't say anything. If possible, the best thing to do here, and I know it really isn't easy, especially if you have an insecure attachment style yourself, is to be calm and non-judgmental while also expressing what you need. And a quick heads up, if you're anxiously attached, this next part is for you. If you constantly overthink, spiral, and second guess yourself, I've got something that can help. It's called the Self-Trust Blueprint. It's my 3-step framework to go from anxious to secure in life and love without years of therapy or guesswork. And I'm giving it away for free for a limited time. And honestly, I'm super passionate about it because I've seen it change so many lives. It's the exact framework I used myself to become securely attached, and my life is so much better for it. I've helped over 5,000 people find love through So Synced. My work has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, the New York Times, and many more. And I've spent years refining the exact tools you'll find inside this blueprint. So if you're ready to go from spiraling to secure, sign up via the link in the description box to get it while it's still available. Number two, conflict. Some fearful avoidants use conflict as a test. And fearful avoidants are the only insecure attachment style that can be quite confrontational. People who are anxiously attached or dismissive avoidant are unlikely to initiate big conflict. And fearful avoidants don't always pick fights a lot. Some do, it's not super common, but when they do, it's usually tied to issues or situations that trigger them. It could be that they feel a loss of control or they feel very vulnerable. Another common one is when they sense a shift in power dynamics. And they often start conflict to test someone's commitment. And they also do it to test whether the other person can handle their intensity. So fearful avoidants are often intense people, and they can kind of be asking through the conflict, can you handle me at full force, not just when I'm easy to love? So what looks like picking a fight is often an indirect strategy for measuring the stability of a relationship. And what they're really looking for here is acceptance. Number 3, floodlighting. And this is a concept that I actually discussed on Fox News earlier this year. And it's not only fearful avoidants who do it, people who are anxiously attached often floodlight too. So firstly, what is floodlighting? It's when someone shares a lot of personal information very quickly. And fearful avoidants often do this for 2 reasons. The first is because they do crave deep connection, and they usually don't have a lot of it in their life. So it's like, yes, when they do get it. And the other reason is a bit like the conflict test. They want to see if someone can handle the maybe darker or less flattering parts of them. Because vulnerability feels so risky, they'd rather rip the band-aid off. It's like, if I show you everything messy right now, I'll know immediately whether you'll reject me. And it's a way of bracing for the pain instead of letting it build slowly. It can seem counterintuitive, but what they're really looking for here is certainty and control. They're the ones who are deciding when to reveal certain things about themselves, so they are in some ways in control. If the other person stays, it gives the fearful avoidant a higher level of certainty that maybe they can trust this person. And if the person leaves, it still gives them a higher level of certainty that their fears were right all along and that intimacy isn't safe. It can be painful for them, but in some ways it's less painful and less uncomfortable compared to sitting with the uncertainty. So there we have it, the 3 most common tests you see from fearful avoidance. If you're on the receiving end of these tests, it can be very confusing, painful, and destabilizing. It can feel like you're being asked to prove your loyalty over and over again. And really, these tests might bring the fearful avoidant reassurance in the moment, but they aren't sustainable in the long run. Eventually, they do erode trust, and they do create the exact instability that the fearful avoidant is trying to avoid. And they do push people away ultimately. And if you're anxiously attached, these tests can be really, really, really hard to deal with. You can end up overanalyzing, second-guessing yourself, and completely losing your sense of security. I really understand how painful it is, but it doesn't have to stay that way. With the right tools, you can rewire your anxious patterns and finally feel secure within yourself and in your relationships. If you're ready for that transformation, sign up via the link in the description box for my one-to-one coaching program.